This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
So many of us have different pain within our body. It doesn't matter how old you are. Sometimes these things crop up from your lifestyle, things you do. And there's a number of different modalities out there that can take care of that, even physical therapy. But even before you get there, one of those things to consider is something known as the Alexander technique. This has been around for 150 years. We're going to talk about that today and how it can support you. By the way, if you ever want to reach us, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Joining us today, our professional of the year, a neuromuscular and rehab specialist, and he is Travis Chastain. He's our expert on the Alexander technique and so much more. How you doing today?
Steve, I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Looking to learn more about this technique.
Got a fresh haircut. I'm liking your haircut there, sir. It's good.
Thank you. Thank you. It's all about the posture. The hair stands up straight. It doesn't have to do anything with that. So we have some emails from listeners from the last time we got together.
Right.
And you ready to dig in?
Let's dig in, my friend.
Okay. We got James in Chicago who says, I spend most of my day at a computer and have dealt with reoccurring neck and shoulder tension for years. How does this technique approach that pain that seems to come from these habitual work patterns?
That's a great question, James. Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. It's addressing habitual patterns, right? It's addressing the patterns of how we're sitting day to day, right? It's addressing how we're responding to the never-ending workings of a day, right? The kind of ever-present flow in a work day, right? And how you can just be easy and effortless in response to that stimuli or this stimuli by bringing a little bit more presence of mind to it, right? So this is a big question. I don't even know where to begin. I'll start with just the sitting and how you're sitting in response in relationship to your computer, for example. There's a computer here. So we work a lot in an Alexander technique lesson on what kind of tensions you're bringing to the table when you're sitting and when you're going to stand, for example, to kind of help you passively undo to prevent the excessive tension in the neck, head, and back when you're sitting, when you're standing, when you're coming to connect and type that email, right? The technique ultimately is a space of learning how to unlearn, right? By being present to what we're doing that we don't need to be doing, and giving simple instructions to prevent that. And then when we prevent that excess of tension in the neck, well, things start to unwind themselves over time.
When you work with people with the technique, and especially those people that are sitting at their computer, is a lot of it, we're all different. Our bodies are all different, but are a lot of the challenges people have and the tension that they hold fairly similar? Because we're doing the same thing. Our hands are forward, we're typing, we're staring forward. Usually we're staring up, we're staring straight ahead, sometimes a little bit down. Some people have multiple screens, but it's pretty much the same. Do you find that the tension being held is pretty much the same for all of us doing that activity?
It certainly seems to be. Yeah, I mean, FM Alexander noticed the particular pattern of tension in himself, and when he got past that, he noticed it in everybody else was doing the same thing he was doing. And not just in his generation. I was doing the same thing he was doing. Practically all of us, we get into trouble in the same way. We shorten our stature in response to the ever-present stimuli of life. Right? We just shorten our stature. We get this stressful email, we tighten our neck and we pull our head back and down and we compress our spine, and then we respond in the action, which reinforces that neuromuscular pathway. All right. The habit of life is to shorten the stature, of the body in response to stimuli. The technique is it's the antidote to that habit.
Mm. So let's focus before we get to another email on
Yeah.
that challenge. So let's say I have to imagine you're feeling it in your shoulders, your neck, it's up in
Mm-hmm.
that area because that's your or if you have poor posture, you're slumping over while you're typing at your screen, you're feeling that.
Mm.
What can be expected from somebody doing the technique to feel better from being in front of a screen for 8 hours a day?
Right. Well, what can be expected is that you're going to come into a lesson sitting one way and moving one way. And you're going to be sitting much more upright, much more radically differently, and moving much more lightly and effortlessly in and out of this chair than you did when you first came in. You can expect that you're going to get some real life tools to start recreating and improving that postural network for yourself if you're diligent and you're committed, right?
Hmm.
If you're committed to the work, then you're going to get the benefit. But that's what you can expect in the lesson is you're going to feel lighter in your body. You're going to feel a greater sense of well-being.
Hmm.
You're going to feel a greater sense of peace. You're going to feel a greater sense of oxygen and flow into your body. And hopefully, you're going to feel empowered that you can start, making this situation better for yourself outside of your lessons.
So I've never asked this question.
Yeah.
What you would suggest to somebody using the Alexander technique, somebody, let's still center on this because it's so common, sitting in front of a computer screen for hours.
Right. Oh,
What you would suggest for them, would that essentially also apply to other situations? They may not be standing in front of a computer screen, but would you almost use the same words, maybe different body parts for something else, but it's still the Alexander technique? Or is this this is a custom situation? This is what you need to do. Another situation would be totally different.
hmm. Usually the antidote is always the same.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is that what FM Alexander hit on was how does the human organism coordinate, organize itself optimally? What does that look like physically when it's being done that way? And there's a particular shape and there's a particular science on how the body moves appropriately and functions appropriately, optimally. And there's a science to what the opposite of that looks like as well. All right. And so what you can generally say about the science of it is that regardless of whether you're sitting and you want to go stand up, regardless of whether you're going to go for a walk or go for a sprint, give that great presentation, it doesn't really matter. The principle is this, is that, in order for your back and your body to organize well, the neck have to have a relative amount of ease in it to allow the head to balance appropriately on top of the spine and to lead the motion by aiming upward. All right. And for the whole back to flow up and out to support that movement. So there's an energetic quality to that, right?
Hmm.
There's an upward and outward energy quality to that, where the whole torso is buoying up off of the legs. And whether you're sitting, that's what you want. Whether you're standing, that's what you want. Whether you're going for a run, that's what you want, right? And then, so that's the physical component of what you want. And then another question, the final question is what kind of thinking is involved to promote that quality in the body, whether I'm at rest, sitting at a computer, going for a run, weightlifting. doing whatever it is that I love to do. We're all, the overwhelming majority of us are two-legged vertebrates, right? Where everything is wanting to orient up and out in the torso holistically. It has to be holistically from the base of your torso and your pelvis all the way to your head. But it doesn't really matter what the affliction, and it doesn't really matter what the activity you're applying. This is the overall quality in the self that leads to the optimum performance and an optimum health and well-being.
Is this, I mean this in the most positive way, when it comes to the Alexander technique and feeling better from holding tension, chronic pain, all of that, is it all in your head? So what I mean by that is you're focusing on making a change as opposed to you go to physical therapy, I got to keep doing this or keep doing that or whatever that might be. Is this mostly the mindset to release that tension? Mostly.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely on to something, Steve. Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing you say is one of the principles of the Alexander technique, that how we think around activity is going to promote a particular physical response, a physical quality within the body. Right?
Sure.
So, from what you're saying is like if we're focusing on the goal and the task at hand, being right and not really focusing on how we are being in that moment while pursuing right, then what inevitably happens is there is a tightening, an excessive tightening in the body that will happen, a shortening of the stature that will happen in all three dimensions of you. And if we get into the habit of end gaining, which is a mental state, and we do that constantly, then the result will be a constant holding, an undue holding in the body, which has devastating consequences to the body over time. So, yes, you're right, it's in your head, but it does and will inevitably harm the body because it is a unified whole. The mind and the body will always move as one, right? And the body will always perfectly give the mind what it's asking for. That's a big statement, but it's a true statement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it goes back to even those who believe what you think becomes your reality. So,
right.
You're thinking it, your body's going to react accordingly. Emily is checking in from Seattle. Instant
Nice.
feedback, Steve at gmail.com, and says, when people first try the Alexander technique, what are the most common misunderstandings or unrealistic expectations they bring with them?
Well, I'd say one of the biggest misunderstandings is thinking that you have to do a lot when you're in the Alexander technique or in an
that's kind of
Alexander
where I was going
lesson.
in a moment ago, where you go to
Yeah.
physical therapy, be prepared for 45 minutes of stretching bands, doing this, doing that, whatever. Nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
it's a participation situation where
Right.
this less physical, but I carefully say this, but can give you many of the same benefits, alleviating pain, et cetera, et cetera. Would that
Right.
be accurate to say?
Oh, yes, in very powerful and lasting ways if you really commit to the process, the principles of the technique, the thinking principles of the technique, right?
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there's that, coming in trying to do a lot, right? So I'll get him in out of the chair, and like one of the biggest challenges for an Alexander technique teacher, for example, is to convince the student that really all it takes is just giving up all that attempting for the right thing to come about. Right? Just okay. I want you to not try to get out of the chair and think of your free neck. And it's something very cool that happens when they really give up like, okay, I'm fine. I don't have to get out of the chair. I'll think of my free neck. There's this immediate quality change in their body that I can feel underneath my hands. I move them and they just pop out of the chair, and they're like, oh my gosh, I felt so much lighter. I said, I don't understand what happened. Well, you gave up the goal and you switched your mind onto how you were pursuing, right? And so that's what happened, right? And if it's a remote student, it's the same thing. It's just, getting them to understand and to really buy in, right? To really buy in mentally that, you can give all of that up. And number one, it's not only going to give you benefit, but it's perfectly safe to give it up. Right? It's quite liberating to give it all up. You get amazing benefits in your body by giving it all up, right? So I'd say that's one of the biggest misconceptions. What was the second part of that question? There was expectations, right?
Yes.
So well, I think that, especially in our culture, I think that the biggest challenge is the immediate gratification component to things. Right? If somebody's coming into me with pain, they want to be out of pain immediately. Well, first and foremost, I'm a teacher first and a therapist second.
Okay.
Right. And, a lot of the times we have to learn why we got there to begin with before we can let go of what's causing the trouble, right? So, letting go of the expectation that, well, I've been in chronic pain for 20 plus years, I should be able to get out of it in a lesson or two lessons. You're not going to. Sorry. You're looking at about 24 lessons to be free of it for life. And you better come to it with that expectation. But
well, free of it for life is a
yes.
powerful statement. And you could go to physical therapy, and I've heard people, go for quite a few sessions, and then the pain comes back.
Right. Because you haven't learned the lesson. Right. And so that's the underlying thing. And I think that's the underlying trouble. Don't misunderstand me. I love therapy. Therapy is great. But the trouble with it is that a lot of the times it misses the education component as to the mind-body connection, right? And the fact that you might get this treatment or this treatment, and it temporarily takes away your pain, but it doesn't mean the mind has forgotten how to move the way that it has moved that got you into that pain to begin with.
I think that we're at a pinnacle point here, because
Right.
physical therapy, you are doing it, but I don't want to minimize anything, but all you're doing is repeating the movement that they showed you how to do with the bands, or moving your leg or moving your arm, whatever it is. But your mind is really not making a connection to the body part that's being compromised or challenged. You're just doing what they tell you to do, which is fine. But then when it comes back, if it comes back, the pain, discomfort, now what do? You go back to physical therapy again.
Well, yeah. And, FM Alexander had a lot of critique about this because, when you're doing a set of exercises, you're going to bring the same habit of life, the same habit of tightening and shortening that you're most accustomed to into the act of doing those exercises. So, which is a psychophysical habit of reaction in response to all stimuli, right? That's what he meant by the habit of life. The habit of life is, well, there's this stimuli that's coming to you, and it's going to promote a predominant habit of shortening yourself in response to that stimuli. And so, until you learn how to let go of that, then these very well-intentioned exercises, they can and must and will only be a Band-Aid. Now, a Band-Aid's a great thing if you're bleeding to death, but it's not going to get you all the way, right? It's never going to get you all the way there until you bring some awareness and some understanding as to what you're doing from moment to moment in response to stimuli, and what kind of tensions that you're bringing in your head, neck, and back relationship in response to this and that stimuli. And, if you're not bringing a sense of curiosity to this movement or that movement about how things can be a little bit more integrated and communicative across the entire trunk, across the entire torso, from pubic bone to head. And, you can't let go of those things directly. You can't move out of these habits of tension directly, and you can't assume that these habits of tension that have a physical look and shape and palpability to them, you can't assume that it's just a body thing. It's not. It's a mind body thing. And if you're not addressing it psychophysically, there's nothing but short-term, temporary
Yep.
relief.
And that's where I went with that earlier when I said in your head. I didn't mean that to think that, oh, it's in your head. You really don't have pain and discomfort. It's in your head.
Right.
No,
Right.
I mean your head is connected to it, and that you need to connect with your head. I believe things happen for a reason. That's just my belief. And I look up here on the screen, and we mentioned physical therapy. This question has something to do with that. This is
Nice.
David in Oakland. He says, I appreciate your conversation. For someone recovering from an injury or dealing with ongoing pain, how does the technique fit alongside medical treatment or physical therapy?
Yeah.
And are there cases where it's helpful or not recommended? So a two-part question there. How does the technique fit alongside medical treatment or physical therapy? Essentially, can you do it with that?
Yes.
And are there times where it can be extremely beneficial, or times where maybe not recommended?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I can't think of a single instance in life where learning the Alexander Technique principles wouldn't be recommended.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that wherever you are, it will help you in some degree or some form or fashion. Absolutely. It's really interesting. It's exciting. There's some of the most powerful science we have on the Alexander Technique actually is how much it complements all these other modalities, right? Because it is fundamentally an educational process about how we're acting and reacting and behaving in response to this or that stimuli. And then also associating with what's the best way of using the whole self, regardless of what activity we're doing. That you can apply it to your physical therapy exercises, for example. And we've actually done testing on this, like what happens with people with chronic low back pain, for example, who take the Alexander Technique and physical therapy in combination with one another. And what they found is that it's exceptionally powerful, that the combination is more powerful than either one individually, for example.
Wow.
So physical therapy's got a lot of wonderful things. And then when you add this missing component that they're not considering to the depth that the Alexander Technique is, what the people in the survey said about who did the physical therapy in the Alexander Technique is I felt like I just had so much more tools. I felt like I had so much more confidence to work through the discomforts I was feeling in my physical therapy sessions and applying what I had learned about the basic fundamentals of how one moves appropriately to this particular set of exercises that they were giving me. And every single one of them had a lot more benefit. And they were far more likely to keep doing the physical therapy, by the way, when they had the Alexander Technique in their corner, because for just that reason, they felt empowered. They felt like they had the tools, to get past the pain in a healthy way.
We're out of time, but I want to ask this question. Would you say, utilizing the Alexander Technique, you will eventually feel more connected to your body?
Inevitably.
That's what it sounds like. You
will feel intimately connected with your body to the point that it's one.
Yeah. Yeah. Where now there seems to be a disconnect where the mind is here, the body is there. They're
Right.
attached by the neck. But do we always feel like we're fully connected? And I would have to say probably not so much.
Yeah, no, I don't think I don't think we are. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we even, yes, I'll leave it at that.
Beautiful.
I know what I mean.
How do we find you? This is, we learned a lot today. This has validated a number of things. Thank you, everybody, for the feedback. Like, fantastic.
Yes, thank you.
Very deeply thought questions. We'll throw that there. Instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. If you ever want to ask a question or any kind of insight. Best way to find you, Travis, how do we do that?
Find me at my website, www.bodymindbalanceco.com.
Always great talking with you. Yeah.
Awesome.
And final question, virtually, can you help people with this technique?
Yeah, in some ways it's amazing to me. The virtual sessions in some ways are even more powerful than the hands-on one-on-one. And I think it's because, you really, really have to engage with the principles with the technique even more deeply without depending on somebody's hands to help you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess maybe that's the even deeper connection with oneself in that situation, right?
Yeah, well, I'll have to tell you the story of FM Alexander's brother next time, AR Alexander, because it references the question you just asked, and we'll dive into it next week.
Put a pin in that. All right. Appreciate you and everything that you do, Travis. Thank you for the insight. Amazing today. And we'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you, Steve. Have a good day.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.